Welcome to BizJet TV. My name is Fabrizio. Today's episode is about bird strikes and private jets. So interesting. People have been asking me about this, and so I thought I'd put together a video for you to talk about this subject. If you haven't subscribed to BizJet TV, this channel is all about private aviation and lots more about flying machines and the future of aviation, and how the private jet and private aircraft are very valuable business tools which save you lots of money and lots of time. And it really is a business tool. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to do so. Give us a thumbs up also. And we are working with AVBuyer magazine, so click on the link below. It'll take you to the AVBuyer website where you can see my articles, and if you haven't subscribed to the magazine, I encourage you to do so, and also have a look at the AVBuyer video channel here on YouTube as well. But that's enough from me on this intro. Let's get straight into today's episode about bird strikes and private jets. Off we go. So I'm going to start off with a story, and Cessna Citation 500 taking off from Wiley Post Airport back in 2008 over in Oklahoma, hit some pelicans after takeoff, and spiral died and crashed into the ground, killing everybody on board. Now, could this have been avoided? When the NTSB went and did the investigation, they said that unfortunately, this happened, and they then discovered a few other things that, the pilots shouldn't have really been doing the flight because the aircraft was not on the air operator certificate, and they were carrying passengers that were paying to charter the airplane. But the pilot, the single pilot aircraft, there were two pilots on board. Though the captain was qualified to fly on the airplane, had some experience on type, so it's not a question of the pilot wasn't experienced. The pilot was experienced, but this happened. They hit some pelicans. Pelicans are quite large birds. Now, could this have been avoided? I mean, obviously the airport should have had more technology to scare the birds away. This is one thing that has been happening over the last few years now. There's different ways of keeping the birds away, from shooting guns in the air to having drones that look like birds that fly around, or dogs, and that. So if you are coming into land, or you're taking off an airport, which is, it's usually airports that are near to a lot of trees, in the middle of a forest, for example, or near lakes, rivers, sea, ocean, any bodies of water, that tends to attract birds. So if you are taking off or landing at an airport like that, you may want to see if there is a bird tam that's been released lately, which is a warning to the pilots saying that large flocks of birds have been seen around the airport. I know going into Pakistan a few times, I've experienced that, but it does actually say on the approach plate for the pilot, beware of these big, large birds on the approach. So so you slow down a lot more, because if you slow down and you hit a bird, the impact is a lot less than if you're coming in at high speed, which is why there's a speed limit for airplanes below 10,000 feet of 250 knots. Now, what they have discovered is there are about 34 bird strikes a day. And out of the 34 bird strikes a day, 92% of them cause no damage to the airplane, which means that only 4 airplanes out of 34 a day do experience some form of damage when they're hit by birds. So that's an interesting thing. The other thing is they discovered during studies is that if the airplane the fuselage is painted in a bright color, that keeps the birds away. Another experiment that was done by Japan Airlines, for example, is they painted like an eye in the middle of the engine. And that kept birds away as well, because they think that this airplane is a big bird and it's come to eat them. So they keep away from it. So those are the things. But I would say if you're looking at buying a private jet, and you currently do have a private jet, or you're leasing one or chartering and that, what you don't want to do is you don't want to cause your pilots to think they have to be in a rush. Because the number one reason why people buy a private jet and fly around in private jets is to save time. And so very often you see these private jets shooting down like a rocket, maybe even over the 250 knots, trying to be clever, trying to get their boss in on time. And they're coming in, and they could, suddenly hit a flock of birds or a large bird, which could cause damage to the aircraft. Now, the damage may not kill you, but it may ground the airplane. And if it grounds the airplane, your time's gone out the window, because now your airplane's on the ground. You have to bring in another airplane to pick you up and take you where you need to go. So, and there's a series of things that happen as a result of the airplane being grounded. And that's the last thing you want to happen. So don't get your pilot speeding like crazy, because, the risk of hitting birds is there. But bear in mind that, if birds are hit, don't think, oh no, I'm not going to fly on a private jet now because the birds could kill us. Because 92% of bird strikes actually do not cause damage. So there have been a few accidents. We know that the famous Miracle on the Hudson, you may have seen the movie with Tom Hanks. It's a real story, when this Airbus 320 took off, I think it was out of LaGuardia Airport in New York, and hit a flock of geese, and both engines flamed out, and the pilot managed to land the airplane on the river. The airplane was intact, everybody got off, and nobody got hurt. So that was really a miracle, a very interesting situation that happened. I mean, I remember every time I've gone through ditching training and security training with the various airlines that I've worked for, they always used to say that if you are going to ditch into the sea, the airplane will break up, so be prepared, because you're going to crash. And then suddenly this situation happens with this A320, and they managed to dead stick land it on the river and keep the airplane intact. So that's interesting. Also, there was a situation in Russia a couple of years ago where airplane took off, hit a flock of birds, and the pilot managed to land the airplane intact into a field just at the end of the runway, and he even got a medal for doing that. They then discovered that there was a rubbish dump near the airfield, which was attracting the birds. So that's another thing. So, just be very, very careful of the birds. They can be avoided to a certain extent. But what I would say is slow down. That would be my main thing. And don't paint your airplane black or grey, because apparently if you paint your airplane black or grey, those dark colours, that actually attracts the birds. So, two things you can do: brighter fuselage, and tell your pilots to slow down. There's no rush, because safety is number one. And that's the advice. That's the, your call to action there on this episode of BizJet TV. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe to BizJet TV. Remember, now we're working with AVBuyer magazine, so click on the link below and that will take you to the AVBuyer website. Lots of information there as well, and you can read my articles that are being featured in AVBuyer magazine. And that's all from Fabrizio on BizJet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.